Fischer.
What's going on, everybody? Here we are, Tuesday Night Hang. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are very, very fortunate to have two of my great friends. Actually, three, but Stephen, we know Stephen's a great friend of mine. So right now we'll talk about saying hello, and we'll get more in depth with our guests. But tonight we're going to shine a light on some things tonight with Mr. Mark Fufano and Mr. Steve Cohen of the Billy Joel organization, the lighting directors, creative directors, associate director. It's going to be a great hang, and you're going to get some inside info tonight. So welcome to the Tuesday Night Hang. I am Carl Fischer, I think. I sometimes have to remind myself. I've been home so much, I feel like I'm 10 different people. And so we talked about two people, and I'd also like to say hello to the gentleman that keeps the stream going and makes me honest every day. How about a hand and say hello to my friend Stephen Wright from Chicago, Illinois.
What's up, guys? How are you?
It's not some mighty red blazer you have on, sir.
Listen, with these two, I had to comb my hair and think about putting pants on too.
You took your hat, and you don't even have a hat on this time. You combed your hair. It's
No,
amazing.
I even shaved. I saw my face for the first time in 20 years.
Wow. Actually, I don't have any pants on tonight, so I figured,
Yeah.
what the hell.
You don't stand up too often, so.
Well, Oh man. So, how's your week been? Everything was good. Good this week.
Good.
Minus 20 below there, or what?
Yeah, we got the normal Chicago weather, but
Okay.
we actually hit the 40s today.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Have to break out the bikini, man.
it is Chicago, so you'll see shorts and t-shirts within a week.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Hey,
How you doing?
how you doing? All right. Well, that's cool.
What about you? What's going on in the South?
That's gorgeous, man. Our friend Steve Cohen, I believe he's down south with me right now.
Mhm.
And it's just bluebird skies and beautiful, and we're excited. March 9th.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, well, let's back up. March 2nd, which is the next Tuesday from now, we're going to be hopefully, it will still be bluebird skies. You and I will, virtually, you'll be with me, but you and I will be broadcasting from the beach. I have a little beach vacation next week, so we're going to be on the beach next Tuesday. So hang out with us. There's no guests, just maybe a couple hermit crabs and some sand fleas. So that will be fun. And then the March 9th, we have, this is kind of I always think the world's separated, the 6 degrees of separation. It's kind of crazy. So our friend Mark Fufano worked with both of these gentlemen, trumpet players of the Harry Connick's Jazz Orchestra. Roger Ingram and Dan Miller are going to be on March 9th. So if you're a trumpet head like me, or a music head, or a jazz head, you might want to check that out. That should be fun. So the beach and a trumpet hang.
Yeah, that one will be a good time. It'll bring me back to watching the New York Big Band concerts in my dorm room, and thinking I'd never be able to play like that, which I was right.
That kind of sounds personal, Stephen. No, it'll be fun, and we strive every week to come on here. I look forward to this. I believe Stephen looks forward to this. This is our kind of hangout, and our coffee clutch hang on Tuesday night. So, we welcome everybody to the hang, new and old. And as Stephen will be fielding these questions from the peanut gallery, it's a positive peanut gallery, I say. So keep these questions coming in for our next guests. And, I think that's all the housework we have tonight, right, Stephen?
Yeah, just so people that are new to the hang understand. So like Carl just mentioned, on the left-hand side of the screen, what you guys are seeing is live chat coming in from all the different places that we're streaming to. So we've got it going out on Carl's Facebook fan page. We've got it going out on his Twitter, his Periscope, his YouTube. So you're able to subscribe to that so you can get notifications of stuff in the future. And we've also been fortunate enough tonight to have Billy has shared his social media with us as well. So the feed is being shared on the Billy Joel Facebook page as well. So thank you guys for that. So if you type in the comments, it'll show up there on the screen. We'll have time for Q&A. I'll get to as many of the questions as we possibly can. And the only other thing I'll mention is if you guys do want to support the stream, because we do this every week. I think we're getting close to 50 episodes now.
Wow.
Yeah, up in the top right-hand corner. The information is there if you want to support the stream, and that's all I'll say about that. It's all you, man.
All right. Well, I could talk hours upon hours about these two gentlemen. So I actually made myself cliff notes to kind of hit on some topics I'd like to talk about, so I don't go on and on, because these guys are very influential in the Billy Joel organization, and just in life. They're very good guys. And, I'll have to flip a coin of who goes first, because, as Mark Fufano is shaking his head at me. So I'm going to talk about this gentleman, Steve Cohen, probably going to be a long talk about it. But basically, this gentleman's been with Mr. Billy Joel since 1974. He's one of the most successful light designers, I believe, in music. He has worked extensively, not only with Billy Joel, but John Mellencamp, countless artists. I mean, too long to even list. It's amazing who he has worked with and designed for. He's been with Billy 47 years, if my math is correct, going on 48 years. He started in 74 when Billy was just playing colleges. So think about that comparatively to nowadays, man. Not only is just not only is he just a great lighting director, he's also a creative. His creative gene is just so deep, man. His direction of the Billy shows creatively, and the video content. He calls the shots for all the video screens and some archive, all the archiving that you see, the old footage and stuff like that. He's responsible for all of that stuff. He actually also works personally with Billy to craft each set list that you hear on each concert, which is that's not a small feat. That's a very, very important thing. It's an art form, actually. To call a set, as you know, as a musician, I know to call a set is not an easy thing. So it's very hip. You know, especially when you have an artist like Billy, his catalog is so big. It's crazy. And having Billy having an open door policy as far as guests go, you never know who's going to show up. So, you know, needless to say, Steve is great at organizing all of these things, but still keeping it loose and fun and letting Billy just be Billy, which is very important. Steve knows how to do that, which is wonderful. Also, regarding a lot of, you know, going from the old, and Steve can correct me if I'm wrong, going back from 1974 in colleges to today, there's a lot more technology. And obviously he uses that in his daily routine. Steve has mentioned he's attached to his phone during gig day. He's also attached to his computer graphics, doing show tweaks, and you know, he also designs shows for other artists. So he's got a lot going on that way. You know, it's pretty deep. So the other thing I'd like to say is when he comes on, you're going to see some beautiful artwork. Steve is not only just an accomplished, I call him a creative force, and he's got into this painting thing, and he's an unbelievably accomplished painter. So, you know, again, I'm quoting Steve from some of the things I've read about him. I love having people on here because I think I know these people, but I learn a lot about them too. And one of the things he said is jumping from being a graphic artist to a painter is not that big of reach for him. He's always looking for the emotional impact and the way color plays, and the way shadows and everything plays into the whole concept. It's pretty cool. So, you know, personally, I met Steve about a week into rehearsing for a Billy show. I seen this guy hanging at the piano while we were playing, and guys told me in the band that's Steve, that's the lighting guru. I said, all right, cool. We started to play a tune. I think it was Zanzibar, I believe it was, and you know, actually I get to play on that quite a bit, and I'm nervous. It's my second week rehearsing. You know, Steve comes and introduces himself and proceeds to give me all these great nuggets of information. Like, for instance, like when your first solo happens, you want to go down stage left area. Don't worry about the light. We'll find you. You know, on the second solo, maybe go down stage right. All these wonderful things, man. I'm saying, wow, this is a lighting director. I'm saying to myself, this is pretty deep. That's when I realized actually how creative force Steve is. He's definitely an improviser on a high level and sees how the show is in his head before it happens. I've watched him do this with countless guests coming in. Well, Billy guests coming in. You know, his instincts and expertise in creating the music visually is second to none, and I'm constant awe of this talent that he possesses. So, you know, I am very humbled and happy to have my friend Steve Cohen. What's going on, Mr. Cohen?
Hey, Carl.
There he is.
I get to see you. I heard what you were talking about before, you know, teasing the shows, your next hang.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the last time we were in a room together or in a stadium together was a year ago in Mexico City. Like our last gig was March 6th or something in Mexico City. And then the world stopped spinning. So like to see you, like I get to see you, you're just across the Florida panhandle here, the boot here. But thanks for having us on, you know.
Oh, man.
It's awesome.
No, it's a pleasure to have you, man. I'm looking forward to your stories. 48, coming on 48 years, huh, Steve?
Yeah, 1974. I had hair. I had hair.
Man, I'll
and
tell you.
and this was not gray. I was, but yeah, because I mean, I was thinking, I was 21 when I started working with Billy. Billy's 71 now, so what? He was 25. So,
Yeah.
you know, we were contemporaries at the time, but
Few years ago, huh, Steve?
yeah, it's a life.
Yeah. I mean, you brought up the pandemic. The last time we see each other was a year ago, and same thing with Mark.
Right.
How do you fare this year, man? I know you're a go-getter, so I know you were bouncing off the walls.
To be honest with you, I have been bouncing off the walls. I got to tell you, it was shot. It was a big readjustment the first 3 or 4 months. I did, like, it's kind of cliche now, like, watched all the baking shows and then started to bake bread and then developed gluten intolerance. So I couldn't eat bread anymore, and, put on the COVID-19 pounds around the waist and all of that stuff. But,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting. I heard an analogy, it's kind of like a spiritual analogy I heard today, which was like, fish, and you'll appreciate what that fisherman, it's a fisherman analogy that, when it's stormy, that's when the fishermen repair their nets.
Take care of business.
And I think that, there's a little bit of that's been going on in my life. Like, this past year has given me time to look at other things. And look, I worked for the greatest man on the planet,
Yes,
the most
sir.
generous. So do you, the most
Yes.
generous man. What he's done for me and for all of us over this period is
Woo.
no one in the business does this.
Nope.
No one. And the security and the ability to, like, not really freak out and know that there's work at the end of the tunnel with him. Like, that's, so, you take that out of the mix, and I'm so much more fortunate than so many people out there. So it's been time to focus on that stuff. Plus, I've been, working on other things. I've been doing a little television work and this and that. So it hasn't been tragic. It's been weird, but it hasn't been tragic.
I love it. I love it. Yes, sir. That's the way to do it. It's kind of like you said, fix those fishing nets, repair them while you can, because when we go back, we'll be fishing quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, another reason why I was very excited too is whenever I see you, it's either with Billy or with your other sidekick, Mark, and I love putting just the hang together. It's this is a community thing, so. Let's talk about Mark for a minute. I'm going to talk about.
Okay, so before you
Yeah,
embarrass
please.
him, let me be the first to embarrass him. Look, I mean, I can't really poke too much at it because he's one of the closest people in my life. I love him to death. He is an artist, full stop. And I'll tell everybody a little story before you get him on, that when this is 20 some odd years ago,
Okay.
we had designed this show that had some fixtures that came from a lighting company in Canada. And Mark came along as the lighting tech. Mark, I'm going to make this clean. It's going to be great.
He just left. The people can't see. He just got up and walked away.
So he was like the low man on the totem pole. He was a tech. He was climbing the scaffolding and and keeping this weird light working the whole time. And we would program.
Hey, even though I'm not on camera right now, can you hear me? Because I am.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, I still have to work in this business. I'm going to mute myself again.
Okay. No. Trust me.
I lost all control.
No, so what would happen is that, we'd build the rig all day long, and then at night we would program the lighting. And this was, 3 different computers and, very early programming stuff, not clearly not as sophisticated as it is today. And there was always someone in the lighting crew that had to work the overnight to keep us, to keep the gear working and to keep us in coffee and sodas and whatnot. And they would rotate it through the crew. And it just sort of happened that every night, like, Mark was the guy that was hanging out. And what he would do is he would sit Boomer built this trailer for us with plexiglass sides because we were working in a parking lot somewhere. And this guy who was a tech,
That's so luxurious.
yeah, this guy who was a tech who had no reason to be there was there every night. And I remember speaking to him. I don't think he remembers this, but I remember talking to him one night, you know, saying, why are you doing this? And he says, because I think I really want to learn what, you know, how to do this stuff. And we went, because of where we were at the time, the guys that I was working with, they were like, hang out, we'll show you everything we got. And, wow. You know, things, you know, develop. And from that, but my point is that people ask me all the time how you get in this business and how you become successful in this business. It's from passion. If you're passionate about this, we make this stuff up as we go along. There's no rule book for how our industry has developed. But if you want to do this, you know, if you're interested, it gets shared in most cases. I mean, there's a few idiots out there who don't like to share it, but in most cases. And that's how Mark started. You know, he started as a technician. And what was great about that, and you know him as part of the crew, you know, is that he started where it was really important, with the people that set this stuff up and worked all day long and were the first ones in and the last ones out. Yeah. That gives you a bonding and a support structure that, you know, you can't get anywhere else. So when it became time for Mark to become who he is now, this brilliant lighting director, you know, in this organization, he gets batted around a lot. You know, and they make fun of him a little bit, and they bust his chops a lot.
A little bit.
But they respect him because he's not an outside guy who came in and you know, white gloves it. Like, he's in there all day long with everybody, part of that family. So, I mean, I couldn't, you know, if I was to paint the picture of where Mark started and where he ended up, I would have told you that's exactly where he ended up, because of that energy in the beginning. And quite frankly, I've never met anybody since who's had that same. I'm sure there are other guys out there. I'm sure he's not just unique, but he's far from unique. But you know, I could have told you that this would have been the result. And now he's off doing amazing stuff, and maybe he'll hire me one day.
And that's beautiful, man. Yeah, I mean, you know. And he's been with the organization with Billy for 21 years now, I believe, which is pretty amazing. And that's a wonderful prologue, Steve, about Mark. He's been with the band 21 years. On top of working with Billy, he's designed and co-designed for artists such as Elton John, Harry Connick Jr., Mariah Carey. You know, I could go on and on. Carly Simon, you know, Sugar Lynn, Brooks and Dunn. You know, obviously TV work too. You know, he's into American Country Music Awards. He was with you obviously for 21 years. So of course the Billy fans would last play at Shea. Garth Brooks, Tony Bennett, running and producing wonderful creative director and lighting for Princess Cruise Lines. You know, and also he likes to give it back. He does legendary charitable acts, which is wonderful. You know, the Grand Slam for Kids from Andre Agassi, Keeping the Memory Alive from Muhammad Ali and Quincy Jones. You know, it's plus, you know, Steve and I can talk about this too. You know, he's also, he's our motorcycle guru and, you know, car guru. He knows all about these cars and stuff. So, you know, my experience, you know, is a little different, obviously, being a trumpet player. When I come in, I see him executing things. You talk about him being a hard worker. He executes things and gets the job done. You know, whether it be going to a gig in Rome and backlighting with yourself, Steve, and focusing the Coliseum as for our backdrop, that wonderful Coliseum show, you know, or going the night before to a dark park and focusing lights at Fenway. You know, like you said, he puts in the time and executes it amazingly. Also, his creative gene is just more than just a typical light director, which is, you know, he's not just pressing buttons. He's got the creative thing. He sees the full picture and always there to make it happen. And, you know, he executes it well with that Canadian precision. It's amazing, the Canadian precision he has.
Photo is that?
Like that? That's a good one.
You get
I just want to say,
you got some stuff, man.
I know.
Here's Mark.
You got all these photos in Steve's intro with these beautiful photos, And then you got me guarding the bags and having a sucker in my mouth. That's just completely setting me up.
Well, you know that, I mean, I gotta say, Mark, you know, it's your funny, quick wit that keeps us laughing. So that's all we have is your funny wit with these pictures, man. I couldn't find one serious one of you.
It's so unfair. And this has been 21 years. This is why we're all still here.
It's the abuse we take. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. How are you guys? Good. I'm glad you guys are both in the South and you're warm right now.
Are you warm, Steve? You're nice and warm in Miami, right?
And I am rubbing it in so heavy. I talked Mark's wife said, what is this tundra thing? I don't understand.
We're in the Great White North right now.
Yeah. And you got Mark way up there, and you got Steven snow skiing in Chicago. So it's crazy, man. Actually, Steven, we have people on tonight in the chat saying hello. What's going on over there?
Well, as we say in Chicago, there's a couple two or three here in the chat. Yeah, we got everybody chiming in the chat already. Thank you guys for sending questions in and saying hello and really quick, I just want to say a hello to everybody from the Billy Band and crew that's hanging out. I know we have Sean Fox, we got Chainsaw, we got Liz, Isabel, Marissa, Mike Grizel, Myrna. They're all hanging out with us tonight, and Mark, and Pops. Pops is watching too.
All right, Pops.
So you guys got to be on your behavior. Good behavior.
No, that means we don't have to be on any behavior if they're there. I wish we could do a full-on Zoom. Having 4 people on our software is about all we can handle CPU-wise, right? That's a big word for, I don't know what the hell it
It's a big word for a little laptop, yes.
Yeah. Well, cool. Everybody's hanging with us. So
yeah.
I'll just jump right in and just hit with a question, a general question, because I always ask these things. I always learn about, because when we're hanging, we don't talk about a lot of older stuff. So both you gentlemen,
what Steve, he said older stuff.
Oh man, you see, Steve, he's your friend.
You know, the funny thing you just mentioned about all the people in our family on they really don't have to watch because they're just going to see the Mark and Steve show like again.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, they're at it again. All right, Mark, you take this first one, no matter what.
Oh, no, I can't. No, he said older stuff. That's your department.
No, it's both of you guys. What got you into the business? Steve, what made you say, I want to get into the light thing? I'm a creative guy. Were you creative before that? I would think you would be. What drove you both to get into where you are now? Is the question.
Go, Mark.
Bueller?
Go, Mark.
I loved doing theater when I was young. I was a theater brat.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, we got to bust his chops.
No. Always behind never on stage. I was never downstage center. I was always behind I liked all the gadgets and plugging stuff in and.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So fair enough.
And then I went to college for musical theater, and I realized that I might get in trouble with all these people watching. There's not a lot of money in musical theater. No. So rock and roll was a better way to go.
Wow. So musical theater doing what? What were you doing in college?
Lighting sound.
Okay. I was going to say, were you singing? Were you dancing? Because I'd pay to see that, bro.
No, you never want to see that.
Steve and I would pay to see that. Wouldn't you pay to see that?
I've seen it. and
worth it?
And it's worth it. It's worth a Platinum American Express. I'm telling you.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah, it's a sight to be.
In my mind, it's a black card.
Okay, well, you always upsell it, Mark. So why should you stop now? Crazy. No, see, the thing is, you went to college. I didn't graduate high school, so you
graduated.
Well, okay, so I didn't even go. So you beat me there.
Like me.
But had you stuck around, there's a lot of money to be made in musical theater if you're one of the 5 people who get to be hired by Jimmy Niederlander and,
But also, keep in mind, I didn't have that. I grew up in Canada. I didn't have Jimmy Niederlander producing shows up
Wait
here.
a minute. You've been saying Canada is the greatest place in the world, and now all of a sudden you throw Canada under the bus?
I did not throw it under the bus. There was no bus throwing. There was
Revoke the citizenship. Take the citizenship away, Canada.
I have both. I have dual.
I think Canada's great when it works for you, but when it doesn't give you what you want, you throw it right under the bus.
Wait, I thought one of the caveats tonight was we're not talking politics.
We're not.
That's not politics.
Oh man. Well,
I
actually,
started in clubs. You know, when I started, you know, there was no electricity. You had to rub like you know, wood together and make a glow around a campfire to sing, you know, Bob Dylan songs. So it was real early on. So I didn't. That's why I didn't have gadgets.
As like electricity.
Yeah, no, I'm as old as electricity. I was in LA. I worked at a club called, this is an interesting story. I worked at a club called the Starwood, which was on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and Crescent Heights.
okay.
And I remember when I was a kid, it was Trini Lopez's like home club. And then it became a place in the 70s where bands like Van Halen and, you know, those type of, you know, acts that
AC/DC.
they weren't, they were California bands that
Oh, I'm sorry.
weren't famous.
Okay.
They were just, you know, breaking, and it was right up the road from the Troubadour. And I walked in one day, and they were putting in I forget the name of it. They were putting in a sound mixing console.
Okay.
And I walked in and I said, I want to work here. And they said, what can you do? I said, well, whatever that thing does. and I literally got hired to mix sound, and they had you know, and it was like a 4-channel, whatever. And they had one of those old lighting consoles, like they had in old theaters that were these big, huge handles that you would, you know, lift up and down. And they had a few lights. And that was kind of something I had a penchant for. So I literally, you know, learned how to drink and do lights and mix sound. And I was terrible at sound, but I had a thing for doing lighting. So
Wow.
that's how I started. And then I started a company and met Billy, and, you know, the rest is history. But that was my origin story.
That was the spark, just walking into a
Didn't you sell
club.
the company to go on the road with Billy?
What?
Didn't you sell the company to go on the road with Billy?
Yeah, I did one tour. So we built this lighting truss. We were such bullshit artists. We sold, we cold called.
I love how you put that in, like it's almost past tense. It's not past tense.
Right. Okay. So we got such,
It's not
yeah.
past tense at all.
We cold called all these managers. Like twice a year, Billboard magazine would put out a magazine that had all the managers' names and numbers on the back.
Wow.
And me and this partner that started this little lighting company called every manager of every act that I wanted to work for. I mean, I called the manager for Wings. I called the manager for Yes. I called, you know, like, hey, I've got a lighting company. I want to, you know, and we ended up getting a couple of meetings. And on the same day, we landed Earth, Wind and Fire and Billy Joel. Now, Earth, Wind and Fire had just had their first album out called That's the Way of the World.
Yeah.
And Billy was just coming off of Piano Man. He was playing colleges. And I was a California guy. And I was like, wait a minute, we got one lighting system and 2 artists. You mean I got to do Billy Joel? Like, you know, I was in Eagles, Linda Ronstadt. I was California, ooh, wow. And Billy was like so East Coast. And I was like, what? Okay. So I rented some gear from 4-Star Lighting and I filled some boxes with lights and cable and and I had no clue on how to do any of this stuff. I mean, to this day, when I think about the fact that I had to hook power up, like I literally took power cables and licked them, you know, like I had no idea. But here's the story. So I went into rehearsals with Billy, and I had no idea what that was going to be like. I had thought it was, you know, Piano Man and that stuff. And they sat down, and the band he had a pedal steel guitar player.
Wow.
Played a pedal steel through a Leslie, so it sounded kind of like a keyboard. And a guitar player, and this pedal steel player played banjo, guitar player, drummer, bass player. And he started to play the Ballad of Billy the Kid. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I'd never heard anything like that. I mean, it was orchestral sounding. And I went like, okay, I'm in. So I went on the road with him. At the end of the tour, he didn't pay me. His wife was the business manager. So I took a small claims court. for $1,500.
Got your money.
And I had met Brian and everybody. And so they went out for the second leg of the tour. And I'm like waiting for them to call me to give me the dates. And Brian calls and says, no, you can't work with Billy because his wife doesn't allow anybody to come back who sues him. So
you changed your name?
Huh?
Is that when you changed your name?
That's when I changed my name. So I showed up at rehearsals. They were rehearsing some songs from Turnstiles. They were going back out. And Billy was like, look, you know, if you sell the company, you can come back and work for me. No, actually, he said, no, we hired somebody else. Then they called me when they were doing a gig in Salt Lake City, and the guy they had hired, they didn't like. And they said, if you sell the company, you can come back and work for me. And I was like, sold. So I sold the company and I went on the road, and then I moved to New York, and that's, you know, the rest is, you know, the rest is history, but it all came from a lawsuit.
From BSing
and a lot of bullshit.
Yeah. Licking wires together, power wires together. And wow, that's wonderful, man. Yeah, these are things when we hang out, I don't ask you these things. So it's wonderful, man. Thanks, both you guys. That's interesting. Okay. You touched on this earlier, Steve, but I want to ask you, how did you, obviously you met Mark on a gig 21 years ago, helping out, and
his recollection of it is a little bit different than mine.
Let's hear your recollection.
Of course. I thought I just cleaned it up to make it.
You did sort of clean it up. I'm not going to bring the weird part to the weird thing to it, but no, I was the youngest guy in the totem pole, and I'm a little bit politically incorrect. All the older guys in the lighting crew were afraid to stay with the gay guys in the overnight, right? And I was like, you know, I did theater. I was like, they're just gay. They're not gonna like, whatever, right? And I stayed and worked and learned and ran with it.
They were afraid to stay with the gay because we were so threatening?
Well, no, not you specifically, but they never really. Do you remember who the original two people were before I entered?
Yeah, of course I know. I know who they were, and they.
It wasn't really like all I had to do was get along with people, and they had the job. Like the original two frickin' frack.
So you see, Carl, this is what happens in families. You know, like one person remembers a story one way, and the other person remembers a story the other way.
Totally opposite.
So I obviously now that he said that which I've heard him say before, I'm thinking that in my mind I made this beautiful, happy story about a young talent who really wanted to aspire. When at the end of the day, he got the short end of the straw.
No, I did. I was very. And then just like that, Carl, he turned.
He got the fuzzy end of the lollipop.
Thanks for ruining it, Mark.
Yeah. Just like that, he turned it around on me. I was trying to tell the truth. Not be political, and this is what happened.
All right, so here's the thing. In all of that time, you know, there was, you know, and the continuing tours that happened, you know, Mark wanted to, I think he wanted to fly first class. He got tired of flying. I'm like, I'm flying coach. If I keep doing this, I'm going to be able to fly first class. Because really, at the end of the day,
I'm a big boy.
It's about the upgrade.
It's all about the upgrade.
And then really, you know, the insult to injury, then he learns how to fly a plane on top of that. Right? You know? What the hell? Oh my God. Which, you know, I do need to talk to you about that, because that's the one thing riding motorcycles.
I am not talking to her. I'm not talking to your wife and getting her to let you fly airplanes.
Well, you know, I had the lesson. I chickened out. I figured offshore fishing and riding motorcycles and playing trumpet were three bad things for my life.
There's one thing I can't do, and I don't really, I can't really lie. But I've heard about you and your fishing expeditions from me and
I
folks.
break everything. Yeah.
I wouldn't fly. Because the second something goes wrong, I lose it. You'll throw gear into the water and you'll never
make the boat lighter. Everything's got to be lighter.
Make the plane lighter. You'd be like that 777. Take that cowling off.
You don't need that freaking way.
How weird has it been? I mean, Steve, you have been. It's been weird for me that I haven't flown on an airplane in a year.
I just flew on an airplane.
I know, that's what I said.
No, but no, I'm saying
Miami.
up until a year, and I'm telling you, you're not missing anything. It's like it's just as bad as it used to be. You know, I mean, the only difference is that, you know, you don't really smell people because you got a mask on. So, you know, it's actually a little bit easier that way. You know, I mean, it was the strangest thing, pulling the mask down to drink a little water and hoping nobody saw that you were drinking water, but no.
It's changed.
Missing that.
Definitely.
Do they serve water on airplanes at this point?
They give you a little baggie on this flight, they gave you a little bag of water and crackers, and not enough water to go with the crackers because you ate the crackers and you needed more water, but they didn't have it. So yeah, right.
Like a cat. Yeah. Great.
Oh, this is hysterical.
But it was first class.
It was only one class on that flight. Stephen, how you doing? I see some chats happening. I just can't read them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was good. Can anybody actually read that?
He's the only one that can read it. I can't even see it.
Yeah.
What do you got, Stephen?
I got a few people, a couple more people that joined that are saying hello. Mr. Mark Rivera has joined and is pressing for the true story of Mark joining. So in the chat, he's like, "Nope, tell the truth. Tell the truth." Then we got.
So okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
No, so I was just reminding Mark, you know, the pivotal point, and a lot of the guys in the band and the organization were, some of them were there and some of them weren't, was Mark had been around and been on the crew and had just, you know, stayed with us all the way through and became really close with Boomer and Sean and Vinny, and everybody became part of the, you know, it was sort of like, Steve, whatever lighting company you got, Mark's got to be on the crew. And we were getting ready to do the Millennium show at Madison Square Garden, and it was kind of a one-off. And the guy who was the programmer, who'd been the programmer for a while that everybody hated, and then I just kept saying, it doesn't care if you hit him. He's like great, you know, like, it's too bad. So he was unavailable, and Mark kind of said, "Let me do it." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "You mean you can?" I said, and he said, "Okay." I said, "Well, let's try it." You know, because we had a few days, and I think this other guy was coming back, and we were in the hangar. We were in a hangar in at Santa Monica Airport.
Wow.
Best sushi ever.
Best sushi ever, but like the lowest trim possible. Like the rig was like, you know, you could limbo underneath the rig. That was the stage.
I don't even think we put up the stage, right? We didn't.
No, we didn't. We didn't put up the stage.
Just put the risers, just the 4-inch risers up. Decks.
Yeah, and that was it. And we sat and started to program. And I said, "What do you want to start with?" And he says, "Oh, let's start with Angry Young Man." Well, Angry Young Man is a song that's got 450 cues. I mean, if you're gonna
78 cues before the first vocal.
78 cues before the first vocal. You know, and
the piano for the musos.
Piano intro, the drum hit,
music, yeah, a lot of
all of that stuff.
They're cueing all that, guys.
Yeah, and we cue all that stuff. So, and I had, you know, there was a way I've been lighting that song for decades, right? So we had all these moving lights, and we sat down and he started to program, and he was faster than the guy he replaced, like faster. And what ended up happening, and you don't even remember this, Mark, like I would like come up with an idea of what I thought it wanted to look like. I would describe it to you, and you would hit it on the nose every single time with a completely different rig. So I was sort of like, "Oh, this is bad."
I don't remember this really because I can't.
You were scared to death.
I was scared to death.
Petrified.
I was scared.
And all I thought was, oh, this is bad because he's really good and he's younger than me, better looking than me. He's going to take my gig. I've got to make sure that there's a little bit of, you know, of security here. So we ended up programming the show, and somebody came in and watched one of the run-throughs. No band, just we'd play the tape, we'd run the lights. And people were like, "This is like an art installation." It was like a whole different thing. So it had changed my way of looking at it. And I think for Mark, we started to collaborate on a real creative level, not just programmer, lighting designer. It was like, you know, he would do something and then I would edit it and I would do something and edit it back. I think, right, Mark? Is that like sort of?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when you're doing, you know, you're a musician, you know that it's a collaborative thing. You've got, you know, when you're in a horn section, you're playing a part, someone else is playing a part, bass is doing this stuff. In lighting and in technical production, it generally isn't that collaborative. It's like there's some collaboration, but when it comes to authoring it, it's usually a leader and a follower. And this is a very different situation.
It's democratic. Both of you guys really work well together.
He's got a good eye.
Don't let him fool you. There's always a boss.
Well, it has to be. It always has to be.
Yeah, but I'm a benevolent boss. So
I've seen you manhandle. I've seen you manhandle Steve. You just did it before we came on.
It's this whole thing. He's like the brother I never had. So
Yeah.
I grew up with two sisters. I had no male influence in my life.
Well,
Okay.
that question, Stephen, I'm gonna hit this next question because it goes into this. So that was 2000, the Millennium concert, which leads me to my next question. Prior to that, like you said, you met Mark. You had another director prior to that, obviously. So my next question is going to talk about would that be the impetus of evolving into the creative mindset of how you were lighting these shows? And then when you throw video screens and video walls, I know it's changed the game. So would you say it started somewhere prior to 2000 with the technology and then meeting Mark? Or how did that in your head, Steve, how did that kind of come?
Well, I mean,
was it organic?
Listen, I think the industry, you know, throughout the 70s and 80s were one thing, and then technology, Genesis, paid for the first moving light company. The first Verilights came out, were owned by a band, and you know that changed technology. The computers and consoles, you know, started to develop in the 90s. So I think the technology moved, and I think with all of these things, where Mark comes in is he now enters the scene when, you know, the technology is elevated to where he can make big, bold, creative statements with the technology, you know. So it was kind of like the time, you know, timing, you know. I think, you know, from then on, yes, we took advantage of the technological changes, but I think we were kind of right, Mark. I think we were kind of.
Yeah, I think at the time I entered, the technology just was starting to be there with moving lights and stuff like that. But in the first 5 years of us working together, it exponentially took off.
Yeah, it exploded. It just it exploded.
Every, you know, video wall, like lights everywhere, video walls, interaction with video walls, all that stuff. So,
and you would say that was Mark, that was in the 90s, would you say that's when it kind of started growing, late 90s?
Started growing, but like late 90s, early 2000s is when the curve just shot straight.
Yeah, I mean, video became the prime mover in rock shows, you know, at the beginning of this millennium, and, you know, 20 some odd years ago. And then video, you know, we all, you know, lighting guys fought video for a very long time because it was like, wait a minute, you're brighter than me, you're more specific than me, you know, get out of my road, you know, like you're taking away the mystery of what lighting is. And then what we ended up doing was embracing it and becoming video creative directors and, you know, doing content, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But Mark and I have done a bunch of shows outside of Billy. I mean, you listed a bunch of them. I mean, we've done 20 or 30 projects outside of Billy. And what I think is interesting is, like, every time we go off and do something, we come back and restart a Billy show. All the stuff that Mark has learned in the other shows that he's done and the stuff that I've done in my show, Billy gets the benefit of all that.
Absolutely.
Really cool. I noticed that too, when we have a little break and everybody's out playing and gigging and doing different things, everybody comes back. It's amazing how it just blossoms.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I stepped on you, Mark.
I said I was agreeing. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's cool. So, Stephen, yeah, I know you had a second part to the question. I rudely interrupted you. What else you got there, Stephen?
We do have a couple questions that have come in, and we'll say hello to Vinny and Michelle and Josh Wable as well, for joining from the.
I can't hear myself, Josh.
Yeah. The first question that we had was coming from Rob A on YouTube, asking, he says, I think I've noticed occasional camera crews on stage in some online Billy concert footage in the recent years. Is all of those will those concert videos ever be officially released, or are they just for archival purposes?
I thought he was talking about the guy with the Steadicam guy that's always in the backlight.
I think that's who he's
I'm not
talking.
going to mention names.
I think he's talking about that guy.
Every night on headset. Get out of the damn light.
Right, the guy that when the spotlight hits Tommy Burns on his guitar and he's standing so close to him that the spotlight operator can't tell the difference between a guitar and a camera. So to answer that,
everyone watching knows exactly who we're talking about.
Oh, I'm crying.
No, yes. Sorry, it's amazing how he can end up in the conversation. It's just amazing.
Out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. So we record for archival purposes every show, and you know, to answer that question, all those video screens that have live images are actual live from that concert. And we have a video director, Joe Weir, it's his birthday today as well.
Is it Joe's birthday?
Yeah, it's Vinny and Joe. They share a birthday.
Great.
Joe actually calls the cameras, and you know, in our family, we've got 4 or 5 camera operators. You know, we got a video crew, and they're with us all the way through, and we record all of that stuff. Most of it is archival. Some gets put out a little bit on social media. It's not recorded in a way that we would do like that you'd see a concert on, you know, TV. Because it's specific to the screens. But I think at some point, many years down the pike, since we recorded all of this past 6-7 years, that we may cut something together that is a thing, or may become part of a bigger documentary or something like that. But all that stuff is captured, and Brian records all that stuff digitally. So it's all been archived. The hundreds of shows, the 75,000 performances of Only the Good Die Young are recorded.
Get them right once. We'll get it right one day. We'll die trying. And, you know, as a musician, I have to say too, you know, Steve has brought up Brian Ruggles. We had him on as a cameo about 5 episodes ago. Brian Ruggles is a wonderful sound engineer that shares the same real estate out in the center of the arena or stadium.
He's actually waterfront. We're on the dry side. He's on the
dry.
Real estate's a little bit better than
you guys are on different levels up there. You have to see what Brian said.
He gets the best real estate.
But what's amazing to me is all 3 of you guys have superior ears, and you guys hear everything. And, you know, and I think that's very important too. Like, we had a comment, I'm going to mention his name, Stephen, he might even be here now, but Jim Meck, who's a friend of ours, he's a piano player. He hangs out with us a lot on these feeds. And I'm going to talk kind of out of school, but Jim wrote a really beautiful message. Jim is blind. He's a wonderful piano player. And Jim mentioned something about coming to a Billy Joel show when he could see. And it was a very
vivid memory.
Yeah, very, very beautiful moment in the way he describes it in his email that he wrote today. That was on social, and now he can't see. But what's amazing though is you guys make it visually how it should sound, and vice versa. And it's a family, man. It's amazing how you guys cue on the music end of it. And you know, I mean, I even think body language, you guys know us better than we know us when we're going to come out and play a bad note or something. I think you guys know that because you look at us so much, you know.
We do.
It's scary.
I mean,
yeah, man.
You don't play it. You don't play. Don't you know trumpet players never play bad notes? They just play the same note 3 times to make sure that it's the right note.
With power, baby.
With power. Wait, I hit that note. Wait, I didn't hit that note. Wait, I didn't hit that note. See, I did it 3 times since I meant to do that.
Yep.
Jazz. Loud and proud.
Speaking of Roger Ingram, you mentioned him on the intro. How's he doing?
Well, we'll find out. I've been talking to him. He sounds really good. He's a wonderful trumpet player. You work with Harry Connick.
Yeah.
March 9th with Dan Miller, who was out with you also with the Harry. You talk about that. You were lighted the Harry band for, was that red light, blue light concert tour?
You worked with Harry for a while though.
I think it was like 5 or 6 years. And then it started to interfere with this wonderful camp. So, I think it was about 5 years, but I did the end of, was it Star Turtle, Carl? The name of that album?
Okay, so it was the pop record, the small.
Yeah, I did the end of the Star Turtle.
Okay.
And then I stayed until Only You.
Okay.
The last thing I did is I lit the Only You DVD.
Okay.
And then I vanished.
Wow, your Canadian accent's coming back.
It is. It's I've been back for a while.
Hey, you did the DVD. Hey,
I'm sorry.
it's cute. It's like it's fine. Right. Come back and be
exactly what a 47-year-old man's accent should be. Cute.
From a 66-year-old man, of course, that's what he would say.
I can't separate you two.
You got his mute button, don't you?
Yeah. I got it, but you know what? I'll throw another question in between you guys.
Please.
You were talking a little bit, Carl, about how you feel, and I know how other people feel about how they are able to paint the music with the lights.
Yes.
One of the questions that we had was a little bit more on the technical side of things. Was they were asking
Neither of us.
they were paraphrase it. They were basically asking, because you guys are sitting out in the audience, how do you guys overcome the delay so that what's matching on the video screens is what they're hearing based on the delay that you guys have to program to?
I got taught by that guy over there, and is he in the top right to everybody?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. We don't wait for it to happen. I always hit the cues as Chuck's coming down to hit a note. So I watch Chuck's, yeah. So if Chuck's coming down to accent a note or something, as he's coming down is when I hit the go cue.
Okay.
It makes up for the lag of everybody.
So you do it visually. You're watching Chuck hitting the downbeat.
Most of the time it's Chuck. If you're in a solo, it's you. But yeah.
But
and understand, it's physics. So there are places in that arena that it's never in sync, both the video and the lighting cue.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
we don't talk about those places.
Well, no, it's something we've fought our whole careers because it's an organic thing. And I think if you have musical timing like Mark does or like I do, you find the sweet spot, and it can be a little soft, meaning the cues can be a little soft, but they resolve, on beat. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this stuff happens when we're creating the cues, because there's 30 or 40 different lights that may be doing something, and where some of them resolve the actual movement or the color change, it's sort of a fabric. And sometimes by it not hitting right on, you perceive that you're hitting right on the beat. And it's something which is what I went back to before. I couldn't teach that to anybody. You either got that or you don't.
Uh-huh.
And Mark has that, and he and technically he knows how to fly these airplanes to be able to make them land. But there are places where it's still out of sync. I mean, I remember someone telling me once, "Hey, how come when I'm standing back by the console and the drummer hits, figure out a way to make it so when he hits it, I can see that it, fix it in the sound." And it's like, dude, you can't fight physics.
Yeah.
The one thing different than our show than most shows people watch nowadays is everything we do is, I don't want to say manual, but every time something changes, we're actually changing it. There's no time code. There's no play button that comes back from the stage that
organic. It's manual.
Yeah. So if you guys start feeling stuff out and start going on runs, we follow along.
It's the improvisation I love. It's
We're playing with you guys.
Totally.
I mean, that's part of the thing about a Billy Joel's show, is that Brian, me, and Mark, we're on stage with you guys. We're feeling it, and and the energy when it's a really good show, because those ones where the audience is really good and you guys just happen to be like in that solid fat groove. Like we get sucked up in all of that.
Everyone knows,
everyone gets the deal. I'll run up to Brian in the middle of that and I'll go, "Wow, it sounds amazing." And look at me and go, "Does?" like sometimes we're not even aware of what we're really doing,
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. No, it's the whole thing is creative. And, and for our younger audience or our audience who doesn't know, a lot of the shows, especially more popish acts, are done to time code. Their cues are done to time code. The band is done to, this is the way we're going to play it. There's no sense of, freedom. The main artist, whether it Billy or a singer out front, this is the way we're going to do it. It's not that way with Billy. It's fly by the seat of your pants. And, and actually, I'll even go one further. Steve insinuated about the audience. Billy feeds off the audience, and we do too. The whole thing is a collaborative, wonderful, organic thing. And a lot of shows aren't like that. How many cues on a normal tune would you say, Steve?
How many cues on a normal song? Well, it depends on the song. Like, Zanzibar's got 150, 250 cues. Vienna's got 4. So it depends on which song it is, But the thing that you were talking about, and I don't know, man. I'm hard pressed to think of any other artist that has a show constructed the way we do it on all those levels. I don't know, who else is that organic. I mean, I've done some Mellencamp stuff. I think that there's some great musicianship there, but there's a, yes, sir. You got to hit this thing right on the money. I did the Eagles, and the Eagles are the most perfect band that ever was. And they spend time rehearsing it so that it's note for note perfect. It loses a little bit of its edginess when that's it. But I don't think there's anybody, Bruce maybe, with the E Street Band, they get in the groove and get going. But this is with Billy. It's because Billy never does the same set the same way. It's like it's different, I actually, before we go further, I have to tell you, Carl, I thought that when we go back on the road, when we come back, I wanted to make some adjustments in the set list because I'm a little tired of some stuff, and I thought that maybe we could get a little bit more of you in the show. So I thought that we'd start out with changing the synthesizer solo in The Entertainer to a trombone solo.
Perfect.
I think that we should take the guitar solo out of Allentown, and you should play that on tuba.
I like the tuba.
Unbelievable. And I think it would really, you could go right down there, and you'd look just like the cameraman. Yeah. So I think we could do that. And what was the other one I was thinking about? I think that you and Mark should figure out a way to do the synthesizer solo in pressure, because I think that's really a way to kind of, I mean, I think we should, let's stir it up. Let's stir it up a little bit,
right now, Rosenthal.
Okay, all right.
He said we're going to work me out of a gig.
No, I think that first of all, they say not enough cowbell. There's definitely not enough Carl bell. I think we need more Carl.
Oh my God.
So I seriously, I'll see Billy in a couple of days. I'll mention it to him. I'll kind of keep it well.
Oh my God. What's funny is, if Rivera's still on here, whenever that pressure synthesizer part comes on, Mark and I play it backstage, joking around.
Why do you think I'm saying this?
I know.
Actually,
like
Mark,
B-roll. Good for a B-roll.
Mark is still on, and he said, "Go, Carl, go."
I mean, listen, we all love Dave Rosenthal, but he's a little solo heavy. So let's let's spread the love a little bit to you.
We love you guys, Dave. Oh man, yeah, I'll work on my tuba.
There you go.
But you hit to get serious. Not serious. We're never serious.
No way
we're never freaking serious.
Yeah. All right. Good night, guys.
Yeah, it was nice seeing everybody. And we're done. Swordfish. Mark spits his drink out. But
just water for the parents watching at home. It's water.
Yeah, exactly. This is really pertinent because Steve touched on it. I love this when it kind of happens. So you mentioned the set list. So here we go. I can't tell you how fun it is watching you and production work the set list, even on sound check that day. So people let's just bring back for people who are not privy into this organization this way. Steve puts together a set list every show now, and with obviously working with Billy. How did that job come about? And I'm sure it's not an easy gig trying to have
big mouth. It's just me and my big mouth. I just no. I would always have an opinion. Brian and I really initially Brian and I would started doing this together. Billy said something a long time ago to me and BR. He said, you know, you guys get a better sense of how the show works in the house. I hear in those days, in the early days, I used to have these pickups on the piano and a little Fender amp box, and that's how he would hear his piano. Josh is on. He knows Billy doesn't like it to sound high fidelity. He likes this to sound, edgy and
rough
loud and it's like, how can you listen to it? But so he would say to Brian, and to me, how's the pacing working? How's the show working? Yeah. And we would kind of put it all together. I think this probably 20 years ago, I just took it on. I'd like get to the production office and say, well, let me put together a show list and let me get in there before anybody's thought about it, and then see what everybody thinks. But the way it works is that, I'll start in the morning in these garden shows, and we'll canvas, like, what do you guys want to hear? What is everybody thinking? Like, everybody in the production office. Lizzie.
I love how he makes it sound like a democratic process.
No, it's not democratic. But in my mind, that's kind of how what we do, what I try to do, and then I'll print it out, and then first person that looks at it is Brian.
Okay.
And most of the time, Brian will come in and I'll go, so you got any idea? You got any itches? Is there anything you want to hear? Is it, because the only way we get Billy to play any different songs is if we go, hey, try this one.
Yeah,
so
big catalog, but yeah, I mean, you have to kind of.
Yeah. So Brian will go through and he'll look at it and he'll say what works and what doesn't work. He'll generally run it past Tommy. And then, it'll be, Billy's gotten to the point where now he walks in and likes it on his piano and say, okay, what do you got for me tonight? So he's sort of abdicated. He's like, yeah, you guys,
because he really
have fun. You guys have fun. Yeah. Play with
and
your.
And then he just edits it during the show.
Really? Then, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no. And in his head, he's like, sometimes he doesn't even read it. And he'll be like, he'll start and he'll go, wait a minute. Brian and I like to slip shit in sometimes because we know he doesn't look, and it's like, hey, if we slip in half a mile away, he won't know it. But most of the time he'll read it and he'll go, oh, I'm not doing that one. But and Wayno's got a big part of it, because Wayno's like, well, you think you should do this, So yes, I lay it out, but there's a lot of opinions that go into all of that stuff. I love it. I love doing it because, there's certain things, there's certain tent poles of how the show needs to work pacing wise that we just know work. Okay. And Mark has his opinions. There's times he goes, boy, that one sucked. So,
I have opinions. I don't have a vote. Don't fool yourself.
Well, sometimes you think you don't have a vote.
What's funny, as a band, we'll show up at sound check, or sometimes we haven't played, let's say we haven't played half a mile away in 5 years or whatever. We'll show up and like, oh man, we got to get this together really quick. And we might be hacking through it without Billy there at sound check. And then all of a sudden Billy will walk in and start laughing. Goes, we ain't going to play that. Or he might say, okay. Yeah. Or sometimes he might be in a different mood and just sit down, and we're playing it that night. So it's interesting how it kind of all just it's like a big gumbo, man. It's really interesting.
And you were asking about lighting cues, and just for the side of it, there's probably like 4 or 5 songs per night that aren't programmed.
Okay.
That Cohen busks. That literally he said that we work very uniquely compared to most people.
Very nice word.
Well, no, it is. I don't know how else to explain it. 3/4 of the show is completely programmed.
Okay.
And then 1/4 of the show is completely busked on a separate desk that just filters into my desk from Steve. And there's not many people that have that talent anymore that can do that. So that's an interesting point of view too.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm good, and sometimes I really suck.
Yeah.
Well, it's
jazz, baby.
It's just, sometimes sometimes you like nail it, and then sometimes you're like, wait a minute, The weird thing about
Generally, I do one of these. This is what it looks like when he doesn't nail it.
right. The weird one is that Big Shot is one of those ones that's never programmed, and sometimes I'll put it in as the opening, and I'll be talking to people, and I'll be like, "Oh yeah, we're getting ready to do the show," and then the house lights will go out, and I'll go, "What's the first song?" Oh no, I got to concentrate. So sometimes if I don't concentrate, then I really blow it. But
yeah,
whatever. You shine lights in people's eyes and make it flash, and they think you know what you're
You
doing.
know, the first and the last song, they listen to that. No, they don't really listen to the last song. They're screaming.
I have always said the first song is like the first half of the first song. The people in the audience are just blown away that they're in the same room.
Yeah.
Which is why for a long time when we would start tours with promoting new albums, we generally open with a brand new song because you didn't have to worry about people going, was that new? Like we would open with No Man's Land, which was never a single off of River of Dreams, but because we were promoting River of Dreams, it was like, oh my God, it's Billy. What is he playing?
I don't know that song.
Since you guys are talking about openers, we did have a question about that. Mandy is asking, Steve, what has been your favorite opener over the years?
Not Piano Man.
No, not
Yeah.
No, I think the most effective opening song has always been Angry Young Man.
Yes.
I think that it's just what you just can't top it. We stopped playing it over the years because Billy just gets tired of any particular song. But I think out of all of them, I think that there's a lot of other good ones, but that's the one. That's the one. It's just it's Billy gets to show off the fireworks of piano playing. It's got a really fast tempo. The lighting cues are great. It's got dynamics and
big intro without the vocal.
Big intro. It's oh shit, the piano man is in the room. It's that and it's just it's always been that way. Maybe, just maybe, after taking a year off, he'll want to do it again because he hadn't done it in a while. So
cool.
Awesome.
Steve, you have another question, Steven?
Yeah, we got a couple here. We have let's see. Keith Dunton is asking if there is a programmed show that you guys have seen in the past that really inspired you to push forward with your own creativity.
Take that one, Mark.
Oh, I don't know about that. Jeez, why do I get that one?
Because you see more shows than I do. I don't go to shows.
I don't really. I do, but I don't. I try not to watch the lighting when I go, believe it or not. You become judgerson.
Yeah. I think the last show that impressed me was a while back, was a U2 show that was like years ago. I think that's the last show that really moved me, was the one that was like before they got like super huge, the Zoo TV tour, where they had the cars and these weird shaped screens hanging from. It was just this amazing thing. I think that, and I remember that impression, that affected me. But I'm the same with Mark. I don't go see a lot of other people's shows. One, because it's really hard not to copy stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even know you're copying it. It's like you see something and it's a real great effect, and then you come back and go, I want to replicate that effect. I read
about a lot of people's shows and the technology they use and how they've used it, so you can keep up on it and adapt it to what you're doing. But I try not to, I've never been one for ripping people off.
No, you guys are very, what I see is very Billy specific, and it's just, you don't see that type of. I mean, you look at Elton John. We do the face-to-face things. When we did the face-to-face things, I've been to an Elton John concert without the face-to-face. I'm sure maybe you guys have too, and it's a different thing. It really is. It's.
Well, remember, face-to-face in most iterations except one, Mark and I did together. So, we lit the Elton stuff because I worked for Elton for years. So, that was really, and that was really one show. It was, it was one show. The cue structure, obviously, because the songs were, unique to each artist, but the looks were, and we had to come up with interesting looks for 50 songs. So
But the interesting part about that is the music is so different that it wasn't that hard to come up with different. The music is so emotionally different.
yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So you key off the emotions of the music too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's good to know. Well, Mark, you can answer this one then, since the the other question stumped you for a second. What's your typical day look like going into a gig with Billy?
Go in with the backline guys at 9:30.
Okay.
Just walk the floor, make sure everything's okay. Which I don't generally have to do anymore. I only do that if we're in new buildings, and we're not really in new buildings anymore.
Yeah.
Like we've played a group of stadiums for the last how many years?
7, 8.
And the thing about stadiums for us is, even though the stadium may be new, the stage that we bring with us and the support structure is not new.
Okay.
So, and that's the only reason that would change is if a new roof system came. But just walk through, make sure everyone's good, get my share of abuse from everybody, so everyone feels like they're at home. And then hang out in the production office for a bit, set up the front of house console. Focus start around 2:00, 2:30. Yeah.
Okay. Usually, what time you usually come in, Steve? In the mid-afternoon, I would say.
I when we do the garden, I want to get in the morning. I'm there at 10, 11, probably
really?
most mornings. Yeah, it's no longer about the shows though anymore at the garden. It's about seeing everybody. It's like once a month we get together with the best family, and we hang out, and it's fun because everybody's personality is unique. We've got this boat of crazy knuckleheads, and I just love it. And I love sitting there, watching the day unfold. I love sitting with Boomer and Lizzie and talking about what we're going to eat. And
that's what I was gonna say. He comes in to make sure he's there for lunch.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. In stadiums, most of the time, I'm there, before lunch. I used to hang with Mark on the night because he would focus at night, the night before, but it's frustrating for me. My eyesight isn't as good as seriously, I can't see as well. And when I go to when it's focusing in stadiums, I don't get the vibe because he does it in a very matter-of-fact manner and wants to get in and out.
Gotcha.
So I just don't, and quite frankly, these days I like flying with the boss. So, I have the luxury of being able to travel with Bill. So I don't, he usually doesn't go in the night before. So, but the garden is like, come on, those days are so precious and so special. And I don't know, man. I don't know about you, Mark, but at the end of a garden show, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's all laughing and fun, but like I get home, I'm like, because you're on it full stop, and then the house lights go out, and you got 2.5 hours of like super intense stuff. It's we're very, very lucky to be able to do that.
Very blessed, yeah.
Yeah,
I know the next day, I'm in Florida now, and I'm not living in New York, so the next day, usually it's Drew and Norman and I dragging our butts through the airport.
Right.
All three of us are just like, you get on the plane, we just pass out. We're just done. It's like, and the whole next day we're shot because, it's just like that rush of adrenaline that happens is a wonderful thing, and for you guys, it happens the whole day.
Well, and the vibe in New York is like, you're in New York, so everybody's important.
Yeah.
Everybody shows up. And you just feel like you're in this really special, rarefied place. And, I don't think too many people in our business get that kind of feeling. Look, the Billy organization for decades and decades has been the most inclusive and fun and, family oriented. But this past 5 or 6 years with the garden shows, it's just, you can't touch it.
7, isn't it?
7 years.
Seriously, I'm asking. I'm not. Is it? It's been
7 years. Well, 2013 we played Barclays, which was the official start of this iteration, and I think
it was your wedding. It was your wedding night.
It was our wedding night, and then I think 2014 was the first garden shows.
It's amazing.
And then if I want to say too, 12-12-12, the Sandy concert was kind of like the spark that kind of, I think, sparked it, I think, for Billy, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he wasn't going to work because he didn't think he had it anymore. The reason I jumped up is I'm going through a lot of the archives.
Okay.
And Mark, I found our segment from 12-12-12.
I've never seen it.
And I'll tell you, it's great. It's, it's not our work, but it's really close. And you remember it was crazy to try and get it done at that time. You'll be really impressed. I'll show it to
those guys were really good with us. Like normally you don't normally going to a TV show, you don't get a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
Like you're not allowed to have a lot of opinions, but us being there with Billy Joel, Kevin Lawson was like, okay, what do you need? What do you need? And he was on it, and it was great.
Spike was great in the truck and all that. But Carl, my point is that it was, I didn't remember, I knew Billy's performance was amazing. I didn't remember how amazing it was. I mean, it is like remarkable. Like he was thinking, and I remember afterwards, he was like, oh, yeah, it was okay. And I'm like, it was great. No, it was incredible. And it was the spark that started it all, that started us, that was the comeback. So
yeah, no, I remember we all got off the stage and it was like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah, it was
it was like, holy crap. Because we, like you said, we weren't playing. I think we were off for like 8 months or something like that.
Yeah, we were off. And it didn't look like we were working again. He was looking to fold the tent,
Yeah.
He didn't think he was like good anymore. I was like, what? You crazy? Like, so it was remarkable. But hopefully, I'm gonna try and get a little bit of that so we can post it because it was really, really good.
Wow. Well, that's great, Stephen. I'd love to see that. I'm sure everybody would. Mark, you were going to say something? I'm sorry.
I forget. I was another one of those moments for me. Just you were talking about how the room felt during 12-12-12. And for me, even before the first time this was like before I was even running the lighting console, I was a tech on the tour. And I remember just being, because it was when we were doing Billy shows and 3 weeks at a time. You'd go out, you'd go home for 3 weeks. You go out for 3 weeks, you come home. So it wasn't touring, but it was touring. And I think I was doing other stuff in between, and I was just exhausted. And I was at the point, I think I was like 28 or something. And I was at the point where I'm like, oh, do I really want to keep doing this? Like, I'm just exhausted, right? And I remember the first time we went into the garden, and it was Piano Man, actually. But it was just, I was backstage. There was one big look up, and everybody was singing the words. And I was like, okay, yeah, I remember why I want to do this for a living, and I'm okay. I just needed the reset button. Yeah. It's just the things he does with crowds, and it's very electrifying. It's great.
It's his living room. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
That's great. And Mark and I both get to work with a lot of other people, and they're really great artists. I mean, Mark took Blake Shelton out on the road for a couple of years, and he's a phenomenal performer. And I was, I did the NSYNC Britney years, and we both did Mariah. We've done really amazing talents, but there is there's a level of noise in the audience. There's a level of audience response that comes and then goes away. And there's moments in all of these shows where like people are talking and they're not paying attention. In a Billy show, everyone is standing up singing all through the entire show. Like we have to do a really shitty B track for people to go to the bathroom. We have to play like songs that you're like, why did you even write those songs for people to want to get up and walk away? And even those people love now because it's like new songs. It's like no one ever heard Modern Woman. So like, oh my God, how great is that? But it's really unique to this thing. I mean, I wouldn't turn down another gig from another one of those pop superstars, but I'll tell you, it doesn't feel like this.
The engagement's something I never seen before.
Yeah.
So. While you guys are talking about the garden, we did have a question related to that, and for Steve, we know that it's been kind of a record-breaking run at the garden, and you know, with you being with Billy for so long, Steve, do you think there's anybody that's lit more concerts at the Garden than you?
No, sorry.
Well, I don't know.
Oh,
I don't think so. I mean, I think we've done 125.
No, it's more than that.
20, I know that.
100. I don't know how many Billy shows. There's been 100, is it 150? No, it's 70 and 60. So it's like 130, somewhere around 130 shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with another, dozen artists that have played the Garden over. So I've probably done another 30, 40 shows at the Garden. So I don't know. I don't know if there's any, Billy's, this record is never going to be eclipsed by anyone ever. There's just no way it's going to there's no way. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I've probably been in that building as a lighting designer, director, probably more than anybody, maybe.
Well,
I don't know. That and a quarter might buy me a half a slice of quarter slice of pizza, but
Sandwich.
a sandwich. I wished I had a dime for every show I did in the Garden. You know what I mean?
I'd have $1.
I'd have $1. I'd have $1.50.
Yeah.
I'd have $2.
Oh my God. Well, talking about the Garden, how did the gigs differ from, let's say, the Garden, a smaller arena, small, it's, 20,000, 18,000, compared to a stadium? How does it vary as far as the audience size? And you've been with different artists. So talk to me, both of you guys, about, obviously we know that the Garden's a very special place and it's near and dear to our heart. But if there was one particular, mechanic between a stadium and, an arena, what would that be? It's the same layout. It's obviously you have the same cues, so that's the same thing. But
well, I mean, Mark alluded to that before. When we play stadiums, you're bringing your own stage.
Yep.
So the big difference between that and the Garden is that in the Garden we sell every seat, which means people are sitting behind the stage.
Okay.
So the biggest difference is we're playing proscenium in stadiums. So Mark and I have to make a show that works on that plane where we have a background that's, can disappear. So it ends up being a different form of painting, and it's twice as wide or 3 times as wide. So, you have to, we always light the audience a lot. So we have to engage the audience in a sort of a different way in a stadium. In the Garden, the backdrop is the audience. So it's a whole other, Mark's got a living palette to paint on top. So that's the 2 biggest things. I don't know what else, Mark.
Is one harder than the other? Is there more involved with the stadium compared to, as far as the painting that you're using, with the backlighting of the audience?
I think for our show, I think it's harder to adapt it to a stadium is actually harder.
Yeah.
Really?
I believe so. Just because we're big on negative space, and with this gigantic box that we're playing in, it's a bit tough. I got a question for you, Carl. I just want to know how what's it like as a musician to have people standing behind you while you're playing?
At first, I'll be honest with you, I'll give you this little anecdote. When I first joined the band, one of the first gigs was the Garden.
Yeah.
And I've played a lot of, never a pop gig of the,
right, of this caliber.
Of Billy, but I've played for big audiences, 20,000 people. I remember Tommy saying, "Get ready." I was used to playing with in-ears for years. He says, "Get ready, because there's no hiding." And it's like being behind a jet engine when the audience starts clapping and hooting and hollering. I didn't understand until we got up on stage, and my ear pack was like on 9, and all of a sudden the audience lit up, and I'm like bringing.
You're looking at Josh like, help!
I'm bringing the pot down to 2. You'll see me a lot of times when I play. I have my left hand on my, people think I'm juggling my keys or something else in my pocket. I'm like touching the pot. I'm moving that volume all the time, and there's just behind you. I love it because it's engagement. You see the people's faces, and it's like so intimate. I feel like I'm in a small jazz club. I love that.
Right.
But at
because
first,
in the Garden, they're basically like 10 feet behind you, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I've seen some people from my old neighborhood in Long Island. They're like, "Hey,
Right.
Baldwin, what's
Hopefully
going
you
on?"
don't owe them money, but yeah.
Yeah, I probably.
I have another question for you, Carl, which made me think about this because, you know, you're the most recent member, I guess, you know,
Other
of the
than Mike,
band.
Mike's after me. But
Well,
yeah,
after Mike, yeah,
before
yeah,
Mike, yeah.
most recent after Mike. I mean, I you know, I've heard Billy with a bunch of different bands, you know, throughout the years, you know, and I can say that, you know, though I don't remember what it really sounded like 25 years ago anymore, well, you just don't remember. I mean, it's not, you know, it's funny, but in reality, you don't have that recollection. It fades. You know, we're out there and we hear you guys, and there are some nights where it's like you guys are driving this big chrome Cadillac. Like it is this fat, solid, a little bulky, broad kind of, you know, really powerful music. And it's like big band, classic rock, but very musical. And when you guys are on fire, it's like it's a sight to behold. You know, you see Billy doing all that stuff. We hear it from the audience. You know, we hear the out front sound. What does it feel like up there? Do you know, is the groove as thick as it sounds out there? Do you feel that groove on stage? Because I know a lot of times with monitors and, you know, you're really listening to your own parts and you can kind of get it, but you know what I'm saying? That's real overwhelming drive that this band has. Do you experience that on stage?
It's crazy, you know, within the first note or phrase that the stuff is killing, and everybody kind of looks at each other like. My favorite is watching Billy's faces.
Yeah,
you know, his eyes, and you guys see it all the time too, because you call the video,
the close up.
his
Yeah,
eyes. You know, he might turn around and look at Chuck, or he might, you know, have a wink at Mark, or he might look at me, or we'll make a stupid face. But you'll know, playing a phrase, the band will play, like you say, a big band phrase, and then all of a sudden the band's rocking out on something else, and it's just firing and on all 12 cylinders. You know immediately, just that it's going down that night.
right.
And it's like it's an unspoken. I think it's an unspoken. It's a look that everybody kind of gives everybody. It's like, wow, this is fun, man. Yeah, and it's just fun. My favorite is when the boss and everybody else is having fun. It's like, you know, the jet engine. I call the jet engine the audience, is always going on anyway. They're always,
Right.
you know, they go on. They're a little louder when we're on, you know, but
It's got to be so much fun. I mean, I'm envy of this because I mean, we hear it, but I know being right in the middle of it is like, so, you know, I get to experience a little bit when I'm on stage, when you guys are doing sound check,
Sure.
you know, and it like it, you know, but it's sound check. It's not the performance of, you know, when you guys are playing. I mean, it's really funny, like a song like Only the Good Die Young, which was never really like my favorite song.
Sure.
You know, it just didn't ring my bell. But when you guys in this band and configuration play it, it's like this anthem, this big band thing that, you know, and I think the big band part of it, you know, having horns, you know, it's been horns throughout Billy's recordings for since the beginning. And to have you there in a proper horn section, and when Crystal is playing, and, you know, and Dave is, you know, filling in with the electronic horns and stuff. It's really a big meaty part of this of the show, you know. And it's good. It's great that you're there, because it's, you know, the only shame we ever do, Brian and I always talk about it, is when we're doing the set list, is like Zanzibar, Big Man on Mulberry Street. You got to give Carl, you know, Carl's got to have a solo. So, you know, Billy's like, do we have to play Zanzibar again? And we're like, yes.
I know, you stick up for me. Thank you. That's hysterical.
Well, I don't want to play it tonight. Well, then you got to play Big Man on Mulberry Street because Carl needs a solo, you know.
Oh man, I tell you, man, it's, you know, I'm very honored to be a part. I say this almost every week. I'm very honored to be a part of the band. It's been my biggest, brightest light in my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tommy is so good, man, by saying, and Mark too, it's a freaking jet engine, you know, or it's a train. You can't stop it. And there's no hiding. there's no hiding at the garden. You know, it's just like you look everywhere, there's people. I mean, it's crazy. And it's like you have to be, yeah, I'm a fat trumpet player, but you know what? I'm comfortable in my own skin at this point. I am what I am, you know, and like if mistakes and all. And that's the beauty of Billy too. It's like, hey, if we're gonna screw up, it's a rock and roll screw up. It's live. And that same thing with you guys too. Shit happens. But it's cool because it's this community of creative.
Right.
I also think it makes it really accessible to the fans because, you know, the fans aren't all supermodels, you know, you know, they're mechanics and, you know, balding Jewish guys. And, you know, they're like, you know, they look like us. And for a minute, you know, when Billy says, you know, forget about life for a while, you know, like, I think that's part of the appeal, or that's part of the power of this show, is that we are kind of we're average people doing extraordinary things that when, you know, you're standing in the middle of that crowd singing at the top of your lungs, you actually think you're you know, playing air guitar, you're playing guitar, like, you know, because you can relate to these guys. And, you know, now Tommy's put on another 30 pounds. So there's a lot of fat guitar players out there. It'd be great. Like, you know, a lot of fat air guitar players.
we all fit in.
We all fit in. I actually think when we start to go back to work, I think Tommy's gonna spend some time in the gym, I think.
I mean, we all probably have the COVID-30 right now.
All the COVID-30, man.
It's up and down, man. It's up and down. I'm trying really hard to not you know, I mean,
but you see, we're still in lockdown here, and you know, it's freezing outside.
Well, so you got really soup, and you know, I mean, you can't stop yourself from eating soup.
No soup for you.
No soup for you.
No soup for you, Steve. All right, so you know, we're getting close to the end. I don't want to kill it because we're still having fun. But before we do kill it, I'm sure there's a couple more pertinent questions from our friends here. If not, then we'll kind of wrap it up sooner than later. But maybe later than sooner. Steven, how you making out over there?
We're doing good. We got a nice little hang going on here in the chat. Got a couple of our hang regulars. We'll say hello to the president of the regular crowd, Noah. Is hanging out with us. He's here every single week. I think.
Where's Noah from?
Noah's in Florida, right, Carl?
He's in Orlando. He's a piano player. I think he's 16. He's a young piano player that's into Billy and Elton. He's a talented kid, man. And he hangs out he is on Mike Del Giudis's shows all the time, hanging out. He's our Steven. He has a specific name.
I call him the president of the regular crowd. So. So he lets everybody shuffle in.
Right.
But yeah, Noah actually asked a couple of questions tonight. But he had one that I thought was interesting. You talked a little bit, Steve, about when you first started, and how shows kind of blend together at this point. But do you recall the first show that you did with Billy, and what that was like for you?
Oh yeah, I remember that. That's burned into my memory. The first show we did was the first show I did with Billy was in November of '74. It was Kansas City at the Armory.
Oh wow! And
I was a one-man lighting guy, and in those days, you know, I guess he's a young guy, right? So in the dinosaur days, we didn't hang the lighting system from the ceiling.
Carl, it's one of my favorite stories ever.
Everything was ground supported. So I had 3 what they used to call genie towers, which were basically these hydraulic towers that you'd fill with air, and they would go up to about 15 feet, and you'd hang lights from them. Except I engineered these to have these pipes on the top of them that went out just a little bit further than probably they should.
Completely not OSHA approved at this point.
The fact that I didn't kill people or Billy is a miracle. But so it was too heavy. So I would set the thing up. I set it up, and then it would lose air. So I would have to run to the stage and pump it up with air and then go back to the lighting console.
Wow.
So, but this first show, I set it all up. The show started. We opened with Street Life Serenader, That was the album we were touring with. We opened up with Streetlight Serenader. We did the set. The show was over. I don't even remember anything after that. I went and, you know, tore the rig down, got all my 3 little blue boxes, loaded the truck. And as I was closing the door on the truck that I was going to drive to Milwaukee or something like that.
As you know,
yeah,
do lighting and then you drive the truck.
Then you drive.
Part of the gig.
Brian Ruggles pulled up to the backstage entrance. He was the sound engineer and the tour manager at the time. He used to carry the settlement from the box office in his cowboy boots.
Long Islander with cowboy boots.
Yeah, pulled up
I don't
backstage.
know what's funny about that, carrying it in his cowboy boots.
Yeah,
or just
right.
BR and cowboy boots.
Yeah, right. That's, if you know BR, it's like BR were cowboy boots.
BR, cowboy boots.
When? What BR was that? It was before he had the Pancho Villa mustache. So he pulled up in a car, one of the rental cars, and I was getting ready to leave. He says, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm getting ready to drive to wherever the next town was." And I think it was Milwaukee. And he says, "Before you go, Billy wants to see you." And I'm convinced I'm getting fired. I mean, I'm thinking there's only one way that this guy wants to see me after a show, that he would come to get me. So I jump in the car, we go to the Holiday Inn, and the Holiday Inn, it was one of those Holiday Inn courtyards that, you know, there's a pool and then all the rooms opened up to it. And in the corner at a table was Billy, Doug Stegmeyer, the bass player, Reese Clark was the drummer. And I think this guy, Keith Robertson, who was like the English roadie, because Billy wanted to have his own English roadie. And they were all sitting there drinking Black Russians, which is Kahlua and vodka. And Billy says, "Come here, sit down." And he made me a Black Russian and he put it in front of me. And he said, "So we've been sitting around here going over the show." He said, "It was the same set list, the same band, the same songs, the same sound. And we got a reaction tonight that we've never, ever gotten before. So we figured by process of elimination, what had changed was the lights. So you're hired. Stick around." And I was like, "Oh, okay." Brian drove me back. I got in the truck and I finished that, you know, I ended up finishing that tour, and we played, you know, we were playing high school gyms and college, but we were headlining.
Okay.
We were headlining. That was a headline tour. I ended up doing another tour where we did some opening before Dennis became the agent, but we were headlining 1,500 seats. I think that tour we played every SUNY college campus in New York, like all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how I started.
Wow.
That's beautiful. Wow.
There's
There's
an answer.
Pumping up those trusses, man. I can see.
The funny thing about that story, Carl, is even before Genesis put all that money into moving lights, Steve had moving lights.
Moving lights.
Because the towers were moving.
So they were ahead of your time.
The fact that no one just hauled me off and just, you know, made me just go home. It's one of those things like you just can't, you know, you can't make this shit up.
I'm convinced you know that there's certain songs where we just put a look up and we let the audience's eyes rest and they just enjoy the music. I'm convinced all that started because Steve needed time to go and pump up
to go pump up the tower. Very well. Yeah, like you can't do any cues. You can't do any cues, and she's
can't do any cues during the song.
That's right. You know, it's like PTSD. It's like trauma.
Oh man, that's great. Along those same lines of things that you had to do to actually make the shows happen, Lynn Ramsey is asking if there's any venues that you guys find work easier, and are there any of them that are a little more challenging?
At this point, the Garden is the easiest venue on the planet.
Yeah.
Consistency is key, and a good.
Well, yeah, I mean the guys now. I mean, we've had conversations where we actually ask them to slow down and wait for us to tell them to do things, because it's just, you know, we're family to even the local one guys now.
Mm-hmm.
It just, everyone's on autopilot.
We're really fortunate because we've overcome a lot of the teething pains and a lot of the inertia, and we also with Billy, you know, we don't work that damn hard. I mean, you know, we do a couple of shows a month,
Country
and
club tour, as I would call it now. The country club tour.
it is, you know, and they are places where, you know, Billy likes it to be as comfortable as possible for him. So he builds these runs of shows comfortable for everybody else. You know, I think it gets challenging when Bobby and the guys are confronted with, you know, going into stadiums when there's a show the night before and people have to get it, you know, kind of, you know, make stuff happen in a limited amount of time. But once again, Mark, and you can say, you know, we're at this place where we're dialed so much that even that is kind of like, oh, so it's a little bit of a tougher day.
We enjoy doing it, but we still pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the quality never changes. So, you know, there have been times on other shows where, yeah, I really wish I wasn't there because they've, you know, been impossible. I have some nightmare stories of the Eagles in Russia that I never want to relive in my life ever again. But in Billy's case, you know, not really.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, it's funny because we've toured with other acts and we've seen what we don't want anymore. You know, we're very, very spoiled to have to and be included with the organization of Billy. What's amazing to me though, too, is, you know, you talk about, those stadium concerts and you're doing a stadium maybe the night before there's a baseball game, like you're saying, you know, and you're putting up that whole stage and not just the stage, but everything that's on the ground, that's covering up, you know, diamonds already. You're not going near the diamond if you want to get specific, but that's Bobby's realm as a production manager, and Max and yourself and BR and everybody it's a fine-tuned unit now. Everybody just kind of just bears down and gets it done. So if that's the worst of it, we're doing good, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, you know, and those guys, you know, Bobby's been around for 35 years at least. You know, Bobby was a staging guy.
Yeah.
Who set up steel. I met him when he was a Mike Brown staging guy when Brian and I did Simon and Garfunkel. We did a Simon and Garfunkel tour, and him and CB were the staging guys, and we were like, we need this guy. Billy needs to meet this guy, you know, because he was, you know, he's been a linchpin in everybody that's part of the organization, and in really giving Billy the comfort to be able to do all of the things he's been doing from the production side of it. You want to talk about an unassuming, you know, I can rave about Bobby forever because, you know, the vibe is the tone is set from the top, and I look at, you know, Billy who sets this tone, and then right below that is Bobby Thrasher. It's like the two of them are kind of the same. They're kind of they occupy the same space in my head. They're like, you know, their work ethic filters down to everybody else. And, you know, Bobby's the most unassuming guy of all of them. And if there's anybody you've ever met that's like, you know, can it be done? Ask Bobby. If he says it can be done, it can be done.
Yep.
2.5 hours and some gaff tape. I'll get that done for you.
It's, you know, he used to build the stages himself. He literally built the scaffolding. When we decided, hey, we want to take a stage on the road, but we could never get Billy to buy a new stage, and Boomer was like, all right, I got it. I got this.
Did you had Vinny on here, right, with Sean?
Yeah, actually we had, well, it was Vinny and Sean, but we had Boomer on with
Well,
Max.
Boomer won't talk about his alter ego, though.
He won't talk about his alter ego, but Max
mention Lift Roadie?
I'm sorry?
Did Max mention Lift Roadie?
No.
Okay, so when I first started, I don't know whose stage was that? The pin stage.
Bobby's.
Okay, but it was Boomer, this production manager, who's a big man and he's very kind-hearted, lovely man, just would, for shits and giggles, would come out and set up the lifts on the stage when Billy used to have an upstage center lift and downstage center lift.
Yeah, he used to set them up because he built them.
But like, he would snap into this like really aggressive, angry roadie guy, and everyone around him, like not the crew, but local crew, would just be like, "Oh my God, who is that guy? Oh, it's our production manager. It's okay. How do you work with him? He's such a dick." I'm like, no, he's great. He's fantastic. This is just his like alter ego. He's having fun. He's out of the production office. It's great.
It's funny you say that because we did touch on him with the forklifts moving cars backstage.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but from the creative side of it, you know, Mark reminded me, like, there was a decade and a half, almost 2 decades, where any idea I came up with, like, hey, let's put a baby grand upstage center and let it disappear. We could never do that. We can't afford it. And Bobby'd be like, sure we can.
Yeah.
Make it
Give
happen.
me a Granger catalog and a welder, and I'll make that happen for you. And he would make it. And you know,
Hydraulic cables going backstage to a John Deere.
yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's remarkable the stuff that we've done with Billy over the years, with Boomer being the guy who, it frustrates the hell out of the guys at T.Ë.T.I because like he doesn't, you know, he doesn't suffer fools. It's like, you're going to charge me all this money for something that I could do in my garage, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
But,
Tate,
hey.
by the way, Tate's the stage manufacturer in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, if I'm correct, who makes our stages. But Bobby, like Steve says, Bobby can make these things in his sleep now.
Yeah, I mean, just like all of us, it's like, why do it now? It's like we can pay to, now we can afford to have someone do it for us. But in the early days, it was like, you know, me and Brian would want to do these things, and Boomer would be like, anything you want, I got you covered. You know, and that evolved Billy's performance, like having 3 pianos, having we used to have 2 CP80s on stage left and stage right, and the upstage center piano. That was how we would be able to sell 360 and take care of the people in the back, you know. So, but Bobby made that happen. He made all of that.
No, I remember, you know, Sean was talking about this too a few weeks ago with Vinny, you know, having the elevator in the back and in the front, and then having when I joined, it was the Kurzweils up in the corners, and Billy running and playing them. And I remember a few times, you know, you have an elevator break, you know, prior to the show or even during the show, or not break, but get stuck. And
where were we when that happened? And like Vinny, Sean, Larry Doby went and picked up the piano out of the hole.
I wish I could
close the lid and put it on top.
Yeah.
Minneapolis. Just say Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Sounds right.
I think they talked about that on the episode that they were on, so people could go back and check that out if they wanted to.
Minneapolis is a good answer now. Go back to the episode and find out.
Yeah.
You know what? That's your extra credit homework.
Yep, exactly.
Buy your soup.
While you guys are talking about stage design, Bill Handy is asking, he said a few weeks ago he wanted to ask about stage design and was told to make sure to ask Steve. When you guys return back to the garden, is there any plans to differ from the stage design that you guys have? And even more so, I guess, what actually constitutes a stage design change for you guys? I mean, they're not very common. Once you guys are comfortable, you're good, right?
Well, it all comes from Billy's comfort, first of all. So the relationship between Billy and the guys on stage and the band is sort of locked in like amber right now. I mean, if I was to turn around and say, "Hey, Bill, I got a great idea. Let's play in the round." Oh, he'd say, "Oh, that's a good idea. Well, we have to rehearse." Oh, never mind. So, you know, it's just he likes. It's very comfortable, and it's very, you know, very functioning. It's a very functioning kind of stage. So the actual layout of the stage probably won't change ever. And you know, we could paint it pink or blue or make it a different color, but really that's not going to change. When it comes to the overhead, the rest of the stage design, which is lighting and video, you know, we didn't expect this thing to run as long as it ran. Like, we didn't expect to be doing the same show for 7 years. And we also only do we only do 20 some odd shows a year. So it's not like we're, you know, in 7 years, we've done 150 some odd shows, which is generally the lifespan of a major world tour.
Yeah. That's
We've
3
done it
months.
for 7 years. The what?
That's like 3 or 4 months. That
3 or
many
4
shows.
months. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, at this time, if Mark and I, and basically if Mark said, "I'm not coming back until you redesign the show," I guess I'd have to sit down and come up with something new. But for me, and this is what I feel about this.
It all goes back to him riding on the jet, by the way.
Yeah.
If we do design a new overhead lighting rig, he can't ride the jet for a little while.
No, that doesn't matter. If we were to redo it, I'd have fun. You know, we'd have fun relighting and doing all that stuff. But there's a part of me that thinks that this particular show is what it is. It's like you go to a museum to see the water lilies, and I'm not comparing our work to the water lilies, but it
Have a
is
lot of water.
it is what it is. And I think that there would be something that there would have to be a big sea change. God, Billy writes a new album and, or the technology changes in such a way that we can do this without breaking the bank. I think there's part of me that would like to redesign this. But at the end of the day, I still do the same cues and scenes from an Italian restaurant that I did in 1974. It's like I hit the same button, I hit the same go cue at the same time.
You don't change the music. The music's the same.
No, you change you change the look. And I think it would be a fun thing to do. And to be honest, it's our choice, because I don't think Billy, if it didn't affect the budget, if it didn't affect the production schedule, if it didn't affect, everybody else, doing what we're doing, and we wanted to redesign it, Mark and I could say, hey, we're coming up with a new show.
And then we have to okay it with Ricky and Wayno.
Well, we have to okay it with Ricky and Wayno. But that said, we have a few months before this COVID thing's going to go away. Who knows? Who knows? There might be some new stuff to look at. We can't do a lot of things at the Garden because the tickets are sold and the view, we can't obstruct any seats and all that stuff. So it would still have to be relatively similar in footprint, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? It's a good way to
end
that question. Yeah. I think Steven's got one more. Steven's got one more question. Then we'll close it up with one. I'll pose one more question and we'll close it up. What do you got, Steven?
Yeah, so I'll take this time to thank everybody in the chat for hanging out with me here on the side stage. Thank you to everybody that submitted questions and just for the comments and for all the support. When I know Carl and I have both said this before, but when we first started this thing, it was like maybe we'll do one or two, and now we're getting close to 50, and we're not only and being able to share some of this behind the scenes and the historical part of the organization has been a lot of fun. So I'm glad that you guys have been supportive and very grateful for people obviously like Carl and Steve and Mark for sharing their time and their knowledge with us. So I don't want that to be lost on anybody that's being given for free. And over yeah, well, you'll still get paid. Some guy said he was going to take you to some restaurant. I don't know, it was earlier in the chat, but I'll leave that to that. But
there you go.
Some guy.
Yeah, some guy.
Some soup.
Some guy is going to take you for $3.50. But the question that remains in the chat was from Len. And it says, the way that you guys talk about Billy and the gig sounds like it's the best boss. What to each of you in your roles makes a good or bad boss in this environment?
Mark?
I don't know. For me, I can't just say, are we just talking about Billy or are we talking about the organization?
Well, the question was just about Billy, but go for it.
I mean, this is just family to me, and it operates much the same way that my life does. Like, I don't know, just family. Everyone knows where each other is supposed to be. Everyone does, has each other's backs. And I know that every tour, everybody on every tour says that, but 21 years later, there has to be something different. Wow. And, you guys have different amounts of years, but, this whole family and even, Billy, Boomer, Cohen, BR, everybody, it's, we've been through marriages, we've been through divorces, we've been through funerals, it's family. And no matter what, everyone's got your back, and it's family.
Beautiful. Steven, what do you got? Steve, what do you got?
I mean, yes. I mean, I second, I second all of that. And I think, we've talked about a lot how fortunate and blessed we are to be a part of this family. I I have a memory about Billy and a conversation that may or may not have happened all in one conversation, but this is going back, you know, a few decades. And, you know, we were starting to pick up speed, and I think Around the Stranger, there was a hit record out there, and it was apparent that things were going to change. And I remember him talking about the fact that all he ever asked of all of us was to do the best we could and admit when we screwed up. Because it isn't about the mistake, it's about the recovery from the mistake. And he said, you know, if you're going to be a bus driver, be the best frickin' bus driver that you can be. You know, if you're going to be, you know, be the best at what you are and give your best, and don't worry about the rest, and admit when you make mistakes. And I didn't know it at the time, but that was him talking about himself, because he's that guy. He's like, he shows up and does the best job he possibly can. Just happens to be the singular greatest American songwriter on the planet and one of the greatest performers ever. But in his mind, he's a journeyman, and he shows up and does his job, you know? And I think that if you can get a boss like that, don't ever quit. Don't do everything you can to stay with someone like that, and try and emulate that. You know, I try and do that with the people that, you know, I get to hire to do stuff for me. It's like, you know, that's what a good boss is like, you know, gives you enough rope to hang yourself and trust that you won't. And that's,
Well, that's also something I'm sorry, I might extend this question. That's also something that's very different about the Billy Joel organization. You are given the 200-foot rope when you start.
Hang yourself, go.
And if you need babysitting constantly, you probably got one tour left in you.
yeah.
If you can do your gig and, you know, get along with everybody, but if you can just show up and do your gig and not need babysitting constantly, and you're good to go.
Yeah, it's an organization that you know, doesn't suffer fools, but like supports every single person, because we've been there. We've all had shitty mornings, and everybody, you know, says, okay, you had a bad morning, go have a cup of coffee, I'll go take care of this until you get your feet back on the ground. And that comes from Bill, and it comes from Boomer too. Like, that's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I think the world would be a better place if more organizations were run this way. There are some things about our organization that frustrate me, because they're not run like, you know, some of those really strong, organized, militaristic. You get the note under the door, tell you what time you got to be in the lobby, and everybody shows up, and the cars are all smell good.
But you or I wouldn't have succeeded in those tours.
Right. And well, I mean, I've been on those tours where you go, you know, it's unbelievable, the organization, but there's no humor and no humanity. We're a little bit loose around the edges, but like you said, Carl, it's authentic. It's like, if you screw up, it's an honest rock and roll screw up. And there's every one of us cover everyone else. And that's the culture that Billy has built around all of us. I will tell you a funny story about this before we go, where we had at one point, and I won't mention any names, but we were over in the UK, and a band member was a little bit naive and had his wife send him some substance via FedEx to England. Not
the smartest.
Not the smartest. This guy was not, and we were outraged. Me and Max and Brian and whoever was like, because this was like going to threaten, we were going to get thrown out of the country. You know, how could somebody do that? And I remember we were sitting in Billy's room, and he was like, would you guys just get over yourself? Who hasn't done something stupid like that in their lives? I'm not even going to pay any attention to this. And like, you know, the guy showed up, the guy who did it showed up at the gig and like tail between his legs, like, what an idiot I am. And we all looked at him, and Billy says, yeah, you're an idiot. Go do your gig. And that was a great indication of like, as bad as you can be, Billy's the one guy who's going to be, come on, we're it's not brain surgery. Everybody screws up. Cover each other, and you're not doing anything to hurt anybody. So that's kind of an indication of, and I know there's a few people that are still on this that know exactly who I'm talking about.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Hey, Carl, what
It's
about
not
you?
what you think.
Yeah, no, I can only reiterate what you guys said. I can also say from the streams we've done, close to 50 now, the common thread every time we do talk about Billy, which is quite a bit. We've had a lot of Billy guests on, and some other things happening, but the common thread that always happens that we always talk about is, the cream starts from the top. Billy leads by example, and he'll give you enough rope. We've used that phrase, catchphrase for a long time. Give you enough rope to hang yourself. Not to say that we're a crazy ruckus bunch of people, but we all make mistakes, and the organic vibe of the organization is that of family. I miss you guys, and this is part of the the reason why we do these hangs is because it puts everybody together. It fills a void in my life, so I appreciate you guys coming on, and from Boomer to Steve to BR to Tommy to Max. I'd be remiss I'm leaving a million people out, but it's such a wonderful, dysfunctional, fun family that functions to get the job done. And that's saying something, and people seem to love it. So, that being said, I'd like to thank, before we leave, I'd like to thank Stephen Wright for taking care of fielding the questions and keeping this feed together. Thank you, my man.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you guys. And for anybody that is new tonight, my last word will be all across the top of the screen. You can see the all of Carl's different social media sites. So feel free to like, subscribe, so you get notifications when we do these live streams. And we do new content almost every single day of the week. Believe it or not. So I know there's
I'm really bored.
Yeah.
Yeah. When do you find the fish?
I keep
I
him
haven't
busy.
fished in a while. Yeah, that red jacket. I got to pay for that red jacket.
Exactly. This thing isn't cheap. This thing came from Chinatown. But yeah, you guys please follow along, and I definitely appreciate all the kind words and nice notes. And with that, Carl, it's all you, buddy.
All right, man. Well, Mark and Steve, thank you. I'm going to pose two more questions. One more question to both of you. Mark, it's the same question, so you go first, and Steve, you get the last word. And it could be as simple as I'm going to hang out with my dog tonight, or it could be as simple as I want world peace. What are you guys looking forward to in the future? Mark, what are you looking forward to in the future?
Oh, you fools again.
There it is.
What?
Seeing all you fools again. Oh, my dog's barking. Seeing all you fools again. I miss my family.
Yeah. Likewise.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in the future, buddy, Steve?
A Katz's pastrami sandwich.
Oh my God.
At my desk at Madison Square Garden at 11:30 in the morning. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, what goes along with that is seeing all you fools again. But really, at the end of the day, it's that pastrami sandwich that I'm in the garden, sitting across from Lizzie's desk.
It's not any pastrami sandwich. It has to be a Katz's
pastrami sandwich at the garden, sitting across from Boomer, watching Wayno clean ginger for the tea. I don't know why he still does that. You can buy that shit now, but that's what I'm.
There it is. Thank you, gentlemen. You guys made my week. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Carl. It was fun.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys have a safe night, and be safe. Wear your masks, and we'll see each other sooner than later, hopefully. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We'll catch you next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Thank you.
Mr. Carl Fischer.